All right, we need to talk some more. We need to talk about what the 49ers' biggest weakness to fix is, and it relates directly to Brock Purdy. First, though, I have a quick 49ers update for you. They have signed two more players, and these are players from outside the building. A couple of defensive ends, Ernest Brown IV, who's been with the Rams over the past 3 seasons, and Raymond Johnson, who was most recently with the Detroit Lions practice squad. So a pair of defensive ends between 264 and 270 pounds. That is the new prototype for the 49ers at that end position. They don't really like those really light defensive ends anymore. The ones like D Ford back in the day when they're running the wide nine with the speed rusher opposite Nick Bosa. They've realized the importance of setting the edge against the run. So they've tried to go bigger between 260 and 270 for defensive end. And they've gotten a couple of developmental players for the offseason at that position. Along those lines, I have the new version of the depth chart ready for you. This is the new 2024 version of the depth chart. I have posted it to Twitter already. I can go ahead and take the link here and put it into the chat section so you can check it out. I know a lot of you followed along the 2023 one. This is the 2024 one, and we can add Ernest Brown IV and Raymond Johnson to it. The 49ers prior to this had 59 players under contract. I'm considering Juwan Jennings as part of that number because he's going to be a restricted free agent. He's technically not under contract, but I think they're going to make every priority to bring him back. If you guys don't like that technicality and you voiced your displeasure, maybe I can take Juwan Jennings off the list, or maybe I just won't care and I'll keep him on here anyway. But as you can see, the 49ers have really are loading up in that defensive line room with these two signings. I'm going to put Ernest Brown here. The first room is in the depth 4 column, which at this point of the season is unusual. We're going to have to count how many defensive linemen they have after I also add Raymond Johnson to the other side. So this football team sticking to their DNA. It's important to give Chris Kasarik guys to work with, and they're going to be giving Chris Kasarik guys to work with. Unfortunately for the 49ers, Daryl Tapp will not be working with them anymore because Daryl Tapp is now with the Washington Commanders back home. He's their head D-line coach. So here, Brown, Johnson, you've got 4, 8, 11, 12, 13 defensive linemen out of the 61 players that the 49ers currently have under contract. 13 of 61. They're obviously not all going to make the 53-man roster, and there's obviously still spots for the 49ers to fill. I think 29 to be exact on that 90-man roster for the offseason, but those are the two signings. So 49ers' biggest weakness to fix so far, it is the pass protection ahead of Brock Purdy. Take a look at this graphic right here. I think this is the staggering graphic that really, really illustrates what's going on with the 49ers as a football team as far as what they have to fix coming up in this 2024 season. I need to, hopefully I could zoom out a little bit. I know this thing is a little too far zoomed in for me, or I could have it take up, not really stretching out. There we go. Now we're stretching it out the way that we want to. You could see on this graph, it is the x-axis is pass block grade from PFF. So the further to the right means your team is doing a better job pass protecting in front of you. And the y-axis is EPA per play. It's a team stat as well, but the quarterbacks who have a higher EPA are better than quarterbacks with a lower EPA. So as you can see, everyone here basically follows this diagonal line. Everybody follows what you would expect. You would expect a correlation between better pass blocking and better expected points per play. And in general, that's what's happening across the whole league. But then you've got your one outlier. And your one outlier is right here, and it is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy operated with some of the worst pass protection that we've ever seen for a number one efficiency quarterback. Again, Brock Purdy's statistics this year, across the board, his efficiency was number one. His accuracy was close to number one as well. The single biggest lie that you hear out there regarding Brock Purdy's performance is that he was surrounded with a perfect collection of supporting talent and that he could not have asked for more. To that, just show people this. Brock Purdy's dot is at the left because the pass protection for the 49ers ranked in the 20s. There were a total of 9 unblocked pressures on blitzes against Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl. I've talked about this a lot. It's a complicated narrative and it's a complicated situation to discuss. Whose fault were those unblocked pressures? Well, one time, obviously, Spencer Burford didn't block Chris Jones. That wasn't good. That was on the 49ers' final offensive play of the season. But then you had the Trent McDuffie blitz there toward the end of regulation. And you say, okay, whose fault was that? The 49ers have a team operation determining who picks up which rusher. And it is very, very clear that Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, outfoxed them as far as sending his blitzes and having the 49ers not pick them up. But the center, Jake Brendel, has big-time responsibility. That's why we've always talked about center being a huge position in Kyle Shanahan's scheme, because center, with Alex Mack back in the day, he was an all-pro for Shanahan in Cleveland and in Atlanta, and then he joined the 49ers in 2021. He was so good cerebrally. It was so important to be able to pick up what the defense was doing at the line, call out the protection, so there's not too much on the quarterback. The quarterback also has some say in it, but it's going to be this give and take between the whole offense as they come up to the line of scrimmage, which is why we talk about center quarterback communication being so key. But the bottom line is that even outside of these free rushing blitzes that Kansas City was able to deliver in the Super Bowl to give them an advantage over the 49ers offense, even outside of that, the 49ers have had big time struggles just in standard pass protection, especially on the right side. That is illustrated very, very starkly with this. Brock Purdy is an outlier. The fact that he was able to deliver the best efficiency in the league, despite having subpar pass protection by any metric, the 49ers ranked in the 20s in pass protection. The fact that this is possible shows that Brock Purdy is special. But it also shows that he can still get way better if the 49ers are able to improve their offensive line. Now, Kyle Shanahan, I asked him about investing in the offensive line, seeing if he can fortify that offensive line. I don't think that a lot of people who are passionate about the 49ers trying to improve their offensive line were all too thrilled about Kyle Shanahan's answer. He said you try to improve all parts of your team, didn't specifically say anything about the line. That being said, I think that it does make sense that he would hold a little bit of a poker face at this point. Don't want to really broadcast your team's plans before free agency or the NFL draft. And the new league year opens less than a month from now. So the 49ers are going to get going. I saw the Bears release Cody Whitehair, a guard who has been to a Pro Bowl before, is coming off of his worst season. I'm sure the 49ers will look into it. It is also a mistruth to say that they haven't invested in the offensive line before. The 49ers signed Trent Williams the record money in 2021. They signed Mack himself on the same night in 2021. They used a second-round pick on Aaron Banks. They signed John Feliciano this past offseason, and he actually played well for them. They obviously used the first-rounder back in 2018 on Mike McGlinchey, but he's no longer with the team. So there has been investment from the 49ers in the front. I just think that they need to keep that investment up. The big night where they signed both Trent Williams and Alex Mack in 2021, that was a big step in the right direction, but Mack has obviously since retired, and I think they need more investment, especially on the right side. So they have 11 draft picks this year, but they don't start picking until number 31 unless they trade up. That might make things tricky, but I do think that prioritizing putting an elite offensive line in front of Brock Purdy is something that could send the efficiency up to completely stratospheric levels. If he's already so high vertically here, despite being so far to the left because of a poor offensive line on the aggregate on this graph, you can only imagine what Brock Purdy might be able to do with clean protection. He was really good in clean pockets in the Super Bowl, and I don't think he was bad when he was pressured either. He was able to bail and make plays and do all that, but any quarterback is going to be better when they're not pressured versus when they are pressured. Consider the weaknesses that Purdy himself fixed. At this time last year, we were talking about Brock Purdy and saying this guy struggles when he has to bail the pocket to his left. The Cowboys really started doing that in the NFC divisional playoffs. They're like, okay, wait, we see on tape that when Purdy rolls to his left, it's not nearly as pretty as when he can stay in the pocket or roll to his right. So they overloaded pass rushes and they made him roll to his left. And there was a lot of desperation flips and throws out of bounds and incomplete passes. Stuff just wasn't as good when he rolled to his left. Guess what? That no longer is a problem for Brock Purdy. And he made one of the nicest plays of the Super Bowl, which was nullified by which was relatively a ticky-tack holding call against Trent Williams, given the fact that no holding calls were called against the Chiefs. But Purdy early on rolled to his left, flipped around after evading the pass rush, threw back across the field to a wide open George Kittle. That's a play that most quarterbacks don't even dare to try to make, but Brock Purdy did make it. We saw plenty of throws against the grain after rolling to his left this year. So the one biggest weakness that people alleged Brock Purdy had in 2022, even while his elbow was ripped apart and he couldn't practice over the offseason heading into 2023, he fixed it. So just imagine the improvement that Brock Purdy is going to be able to make now that he has his first fully healthy offseason within an NFL program looming. That's big news for the 49ers. Now, I say weaknesses that he fixed. There wasn't just one weakness. You only should be rolling out against the grain if it's your last resort. You should never be doing that just for the hell of it. And I thought that Purdy escaped the pocket a little bit too early as a rookie in 2022. You'd bail when he could have just stepped up in the pocket. He could have done a better job manipulating the pocket. And that's something that he really, really improved in 2023. He was able to hang in there, not just hang in there. He's an elite mover within the pocket. He knows how to take a step forward, a step back, step in, 2 steps in one direction, 1 step back, in another, to be able to create a visual throwing lane and deliver. Probably the best play that I could think of in that regard was the deeper corner to Chris Conley. Remember, that throw was a hell of a throw, but it's not just one where Brock Purdy is sitting back and waiting for Conley to get open. The pocket starts closing in on him because the pass protection isn't great for the 49ers, but he's able to fade away from the pass rush, move toward his left, and as he's moving and buying that extra time, he uncorks the perfect pass 25 yards downfield to Chris Conley. That's an example of a mature quarterback staying within structure because Shanahan, it's all choreographed. The routes work in tandem with each other, right? The routes work together. The idea is that the quarterback is sitting at the controls in the pocket, and with the routes working together to create space on the defense by suckering a guy one way, Christian McCaffrey using his gravitational pull the other way. By creating space like that, Shanahan wants his QB sitting at the controls, and he wants him standing and delivering from the pocket. So if you bail the pocket too early, that whole intricate design and that whole process blows up. And then it's like, well, what the hell is he doing? He's outside structure. This goes back to Bill Walsh wanting Steve Young to stay within structure and not run all the time. You run as a last resort. You bail as a last resort. And I think that Purdy has fixed that weakness to where he's in the pocket way more often now. That's why the efficiency went up even higher. But he bails the pocket to deliver off-schedule plays when this pass protection, which objectively hasn't been good, does slide downward. So it's a complicated issue, but I think it's an issue that the 49ers saw Purdy improve with remarkably over the course of this past season. And now they just need to arm him with better pass protection. And I think the efficiency, which was already at number 1 levels, can go even further up. I'm considering this a 49ers update since they did make a couple signings, Ernest Brown and Raymond Johnson. I will chime in on the Shanahan-Wilkes issue. I know I chimed in on it a lot yesterday, but the stupid takes just keep rolling in. People don't understand how the 49ers could fire Steve Wilkes when Kyle Shanahan was in charge of the offense that supposedly played worse in the Super Bowl. Again, if you only watch the 49ers play in the Super Bowl and you have no understanding of the entire regular season, if you just tuned in at the very end, you are not entitled to give an opinion that we have to listen to. Sure, you can yell your opinion just like a lot of people are, but that doesn't mean that the opinion makes any sense. Here are the facts of the matter. The 49ers offense ranked number 4 in 2022 and ranked number 1 this season. They went from number 4 to number 1. That's the offense that Shanahan himself coordinates. The defense ranked number 1 in 2022 under DeMeco Ryans, and it ranked number 12 in 2023 under Steve Wilkes. So they went from number 1 to number 12. One of those units trended in the right direction. The other one trended in the wrong direction. The 49ers are not like these casual observers, both media and fans, watching only one game and trying to make a defensive coordinator decision based on that one game. The 49ers are looking at larger trends, and the larger trend was that the defense just was a fish out of water this year. With arguably greater talent, they performed significantly worse than they did under their previous defensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans. So Steve Wilks is obviously not the defensive coordinator anymore. It's as simple as that. I think they probably would have parted ways with him even had they won the Super Bowl. But the last straw came on that final drive of the Super Bowl when Shanahan was exasperated with one of Wilks's defensive alignments, and he had to call timeout before the snap. There were so many other things if you actually watched over the course of the regular season. So no, this wasn't a scapegoating thing. This was Shanahan taking responsibility for his team, seeing that his own hire at defensive coordinator had overseen regression on defense and realizing that he had to diverge from that path of action to make sure that the defense got back on track. Shanahan knows that his best chance of winning a Super Bowl is going to come with a top 3 defense. And this defense has the talent to be a top 3 defense, and they finished ranked number 12. So he replaced the defensive coordinator. He acknowledged his mistake, essentially, in hiring Steve Wilks in the first place. He thought that he could fit that square peg in a round hole. I think the mistake that Shanahan made was that he got a little too confident, a little too cocky about his own defensive talent and his own building's way of operating, that he could bring Steve Wilks in and force him to assimilate. And it didn't really happen, or it didn't happen with the results that the 49ers needed. So this issue is so overplayed. So many people are getting it wrong. You can listen here, though. I think that the facts are not hard to digest. And the trend of performance is what answers your question about why the 49ers did what they did. You're not going to take number 1 to number 12. You're not going to take that kind of slide with greater talent when you're on the doorstep of winning a Super Bowl. All right. So everybody, I put it into the chat section a little bit earlier. I could toss it back up onto the screen right now. This is your 49ers depth chart for this 2022 season. With that depth chart, you have the full power structure of how it works with the 49ers as far as the players go. I've divided this up for the future. You've got the dividing line for the 53-man roster projection, but I won't make a 53-man roster projection until the first wave of free agency, which is less than a month away. All right, 17 minutes for the show. That seems about right. Just like number 17, the number that you won't know. You won't know what's on the back of that jersey until the 49ers actually win a Super Bowl. They didn't win it this year, so we're not flipping it around. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. We will talk to you very soon.